And Damon, let's talk a little bit about the 5 o'clock forecast. People are going to say, well, do you show up at 4:30 and you just pick some numbers up and some nice graphics? Can you walk us through, and let's start at the 5 o'clock newscast. How much preparation? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 2 hours? I mean, are you looking at, let's say on Monday's forecast where you're looking at things Sunday? How much effort goes into that?
There is a lot that goes into making that 5 o'clock forecast, and it's not as simple as just coming in 20 minutes before the newscast and putting it all together. It actually starts really early in the morning when I wake up at about 7, 8 a.m. First thing I'll do is look at the weather. You know, the best thing that a meteorologist can do is just look outside the window. Is the sun shining? Are the clouds out in the sky? Or is it a blue sky? I get into work at about 1:30, and the forecasting begins right about there. I'm the only person probably left at the TV station that still uses a number 2 pencil, but I start with looking at what's happening right now. I'll make a 3-hour forecast. Those are always the easiest, especially when the weather is quiet. And then I'll go into making the evening forecast, looking at all the computer data coming in, looking at what is right, what is wrong. I have about 15 different weather models that I can look at. That whole process of looking at the weather data, looking at the winds, the humidity, the lows, the highs, whether there's a storm system coming in, that takes about 45 minutes to 1 hour just to put all that together on a spreadsheet that I have, still use my pencil. And then I have to take that information that I just wrote down on paper and start putting it into what looks pretty on television. Weather, meteorology is a very complicated science. It's not pretty to look at when you're just looking at the hard science of it. So we have to break it down, make it easy, and of course make it visually appealing as well. That process takes a while. So we go from the forecast to then putting the weather icon symbols on a map. That will take about 30 to 45 minutes depending on whether we have severe weather in the forecast or not. But the most important thing that I have to do, and you know this as well, is the closed captioning, because if you are wrong, if you do not have a show closed caption, it's one of those you are guilty until proven innocent. And so I have to actually go down and type everything that I'm going to say hours before I ever say it for the closed captioner. That takes a very big part of my day as well. And then there's the radio hits that we do, the newspapers, we do the forecast for the Enid News. And then there's also going to be the social media. You know, the television, especially the television model that you watched growing up and that a lot of us probably watched growing up has completely changed now. Since the invention of the internet, since social media, Twitter, Facebook has really become very popular. You know, we used to be a television station. Now we're a media station. We are making sure that we are providing forecasts for all the social media platforms that are out there. So there is a lot, and it takes about 3 hours just to put together a 3-minute forecast that airs at 5 o'clock. There's a lot that goes into it.
That's a lot more effort than I thought. I just assumed that it was going to take a few hours, but that's a great equation of 3 hours preparation for 3 minutes. Kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. You know, you spend 3 days cooking, and it's all eaten in 20 minutes or less, and then you have to clean up. Now, you were talking about technology changes. I'll date myself, but I do remember black and white TV days and watching the weather. There wasn't the fancy graphics. It was just kind of looked like some school pictures that were you know, drawn on the TV scene, but it was black and white TV days. So with this new technology changes in 10, 20 years, and it's probably very rapidly changing, does that help you out at all?
Yes and no. Of course, with more technology come higher expectations of what the viewer at home wants to see on TV. If you look back in the 1990s, weather broadcasting was in today's standards simple, but it was still very complicated. For instance, there were weather graphics companies in which they would say you have 10 downloads a month. So what does that mean? You can download a satellite image 10 times during the entire month. Well, you don't want to download a satellite image when it's clear and sunny. You want to wait and kind of save those downloads for the days that you know the storms are going to develop. So back in the 90s, the weather graphics, they were very simple. It was a satellite image that more than likely didn't move. It was just a stationary satellite image. The temperatures might pop up on the map, but it was just very, very hard to look at. It was not visually appealing. thanks to Windows really changed the way that we can present weather information on air, do it faster. The internet has certainly helped out a lot as well. And now we're going HD and 3D TV. You know, some of the latest technology that we have now coming in the KOCO television is that, let's say on a storm day, you have someone on the weather wall and then someone running the radar, drawing out the storm tracks, showing you where the circulation is on the radar. Now we have the ability to do that all on our own. So for example, I can be on the weather wall and I can basically have an imaginary mouse that is in my hand. You won't see it at home, but I can draw out storm tracks without ever having to actually be at a computer. It's that type of technology where you are becoming more involved with the viewer, becoming more involved with the graphics. Instead of just putting together a PowerPoint presentation, now you are really jumping into the graphics, whether it's three-dimensional, whether you know, it is me on the wall drawing out storm tracks on my own. Research has shown that people like to see the meteorologist on TV. So we have to try to stay on television as long as possible. There are days when storms are developing and you have radars that you have to look at and you have to step off to talk to your storm chasers. But we know that when the meteorologist steps off the camera and is not there to show you where the tornado is, people begin to have questions. So there's a lot that's going on now in technology, and it's really all happened in the last 20 years, from being able to only download one satellite image a day or 10 a month to now we have movies, we have flashy fly-throughs, we have 3D TV. You know, you're now jumping into the graphics. So it's amazing where the technology in television has gone in the last 20 years, last 2 decades, and where we're headed in the next couple of years, next couple of decades is going to be fun to watch.
If I can ask you this, Damon, excuse me, what would be, with all the technology and all the help that you have and all the sciences and so forth, what would be the most difficult part of forecasting? Is there a simple answer to that?
Oh my gosh, the most difficult part of forecasting.
I mean, it's given of getting it right.
Yeah, you know, of course you want to get it right, but probably the most difficult part of forecasting is trying to keep the viewer's attention. We all live busy lives now, you know, especially in the morning. You're no longer sitting down and watching the television. You have the TV on, but you're getting the kids ready for school, you're having breakfast, you're trying to get ready for work, all while you're trying to figure out what's the weather going to be like today. We live in a world now where social media is huge. We live in a world where we have our iPhones and our Android phones that are sitting next to our nightstand, and we can just get up in the morning and hit an app and it tells us what the weather is. So how does television survive? And that is really the hardest thing that we're going through right now, is what can we provide to you at home that a simple app cannot tell you? And it really comes down to severe weather, impactful weather. And here in Oklahoma, we know how weather can hurt people. We know how bad it can be. And it is our weather, and as bad as it is, that is keeping us in the industry today. So that's really the hardest part, is how do you keep television alive? And of course, how do we keep you at home interested and wanting to watch the news?
Storm chasing, Damon, let's talk a little bit about that. I noticed there's a trend with different stations to have spotters all over the state, and they can report on a moment's notice what's going on, which has got to be very helpful, or at least it confirms what you see on radar or in your forecast. Where do you find these individuals? And I guess really my question is, are they certified, or could a character like me be one of those, or not?
You know, it goes back a lot to their upbringing, their education. You know, having the University of Oklahoma right down the street is a phenomenal school that produces some of the finest meteorologists in the entire world. So we had the ability to reach out to the University of Oklahoma to see what students are down there who are already storm chasing. At the same time, though, yes, you do have to be certified. Now, there is not an official certification program that a storm chaser goes through, but there are spotter programs. And if you're from Oklahoma and you talk to an Oklahoman, usually they know enough about weather that they can kind of give you a report. Of course, the most important thing, though, is not so much bringing in the pictures back into the station when you're going out storm chasing, but how can you communicate? Because you have to communicate to the viewer at home. I have a radar. Radar is a valuable tool, and of course it's always going to be here for us to use, but those eyes in the field that can actually see those storms and see the things that the radar can't tell us, and you have to be able to communicate that back at home. So it involves a lot of things, but certainly some of the best storm chasers in the entire world are right here. And we're very lucky to especially have these type of people that are willing to want to go out and get in a helicopter and go after a tornado, because I can tell you right now, there are not many people out there that would be willing to want to jump in a helicopter and then circle a tornado. If you think turbulence in the airplane is bad, wait until you're in a chopper circling around an EF5 monster.
What's the best thing about your role at Channel 5?
Oh, the best thing about my role at Channel 5. I love Oklahoma weather. And when you find a job where you get to talk about what you love, it doesn't really feel like much of a job. It's just a hobby. It's fun. I know that the weather out here is tough. It can be bad. But at the same time, I know that there are people that need to know that information. And if you love what you do, then you never have to work a day in your life.
Very good. Well, we certainly appreciate you being here and talking to us about weather as we go into severe weather season.